Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the spider ball python, and I actually had a comment under one of my videos. Someone said, hey, there's so many ball python morphs out there, it makes my head spin, it's this information overload. How do I learn all these morphs? And I would say really you should just take them one by one and learn each individual morph. I'd say everyone is really unique, it has a lot of pros and cons, and everyone is different. You really can't make any generalizations, you just really have to learn each and every one. And I would say if you're just starting out in ball pythons, probably the #1 gene that you should start with before you learn anything else is the spider. And I would say when it comes to the spider, it's probably the most controversial of all the ball python genes, and that is because of the neurological issue that they tend to have called the head wobble. And some of them, I'd say some of them are perfectly normal. Actually, I produced a bunch of spiders this year. None of them seem to have a really bad head wobble, and I think I got pretty lucky. Sometimes you can have some spiders that have some really bad corkscrewing or stargazing, but I'd say probably 90-95% are really probably perfectly fine as far as what I've seen, and it's just a few, you know, the small percentage of the ones that have the really bad head wobble that kind of ruin the whole gene and gives them a bad name. As a matter of fact, over in the UK at some of the large reptile shows, they've actually banned the display and sale of anything that contains spider. So when you're buying a spider, actually when I first got into ball pythons, I thought the spiders made the most impressive combos out of all the genes, and I started investing heavily into spiders. And then it was about a year later I found out about the head wobble, and I kind of regretted buying so many spiders. I probably would have just bought 1 or 2 instead of, I think I have 5 or 6 spider combos in my collection here. I actually bred my first spiders this year, just 1 clutch of spiders, and they all came out with no head wobble, which is pretty cool. But I'd say if you're looking for something close to a spider, what you can actually do is you can buy a bamboo, and this is what I have around my neck. This is Bobby here trying to choke me out again. All right, Bobby, come on. What are you doing? I gotta get his head and get him out from around my neck here. Whew. I would say this is probably as close as you can get to a spider ball python is the bamboo. The thing is with the bamboo makes some impressive combos, but I would say it's nowhere near the potential of the spider. You look at some of the high-end spiders, and let me tell you, there's nothing you can do with the bamboo that could even get close to some of the stuff that you can do with a spider. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the internet and I want to show you what the spider looks like. Alright, so I'm over here at the World of Ball Pythons, and I pretty much hang out between this website and Morph Market to really look at the potential of these different morphs. And the first thing I want to show you is what the spider looks like. And I would say this is pretty much one of the best standalone morphs that you can get. You can see it kind of looks, I'd say, pretty close to the bamboo. I'd say if it wasn't for the head wobble, this might even be more popular than the bamboo, because this is a really impressive snake. And to me, if you just look at the spider is actually co-dominant. So if you bred it to another snake, 50% of the babies, half of them, would actually be spider or spider combos, which is pretty interesting. And if you look at the snake, it actually, to me, it actually looks like there's more than 1 gene, even though it's just 1. If I was to guess what was actually in here and didn't realize it was 1 gene, to me, it almost looks like the gold color of a pinstripe, and then the white up the sides almost looks like the white from a Calico, and then the reduced pattern almost looks like maybe Enchi or super Enchi. That's what I would guess, you know, if it was individual genes, but no, it is just 1 gene. You breed it to something else, and it's pretty much all those 3 together in 1 morph, and it's I would say it's one of the most impressive snakes that you can find. So when the spider first came out, I would say probably the first thing that people bred to it was the Pastel. And let me tell you, talk about an impressive snake. When you breed Pastel to spider, you end up with a Bumblebee. And the Pastel is really, it kind of reduces and jumbles up the pattern. And if you kind of look through the pictures of the Pastel, you'll see some are super bright yellow and some are not quite as yellow. It depends on the line of the Pastel, but it mixes really well with spider. Take a look at this. This is the Bumblebee, the Pastel spider. And I would say this is really kind of what really jump-started the ball python industry right from the beginning. The spider came out, and then right on the heels of the spider, they made the Bumblebee. And people were just in awe that a ball python could even look like this. And this is kind of what started the whole craze in ball pythons, was the Bumblebee. So this is an interesting combo. This is actually the blackhead, and this is really an anomaly when it comes to the spider. I actually had this question under one of my videos. Someone asked, is there a morph you can actually mix with the spider to cancel out the head wobble? And actually there is only one that I know of, and that is the blackhead. The blackhead's kind of interesting because it's really a dark morph. It's really dark, and if you mix the blackhead with the spider, you eliminate the wobble. But the problem is, take a look at the combo. This is the blackhead spider, and it doesn't really look like a spider anymore. It just pretty much looks like kind of a reduced pattern of a blackhead. So it kind of defeats the purpose of actually trying to eliminate the head wobble, because you also eliminate most of the impressive spider pattern in the mix. So this is kind of interesting too. This is the Leopard ball python, and the Leopard, I would say, is pretty much the king of combos. Works really well with almost all genes. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about getting a Leopard in my collection. I still don't have Leopard, but it is definitely on my list. If you mix that with spider, take a look at what happens. You actually get a really interesting snake. It looks like it is really reduced. It almost kind of looks like a lemon blast as far as the reduction. Not as yellow as a lemon blast. It's probably the only thing that is even close to something like this. It's pretty impressive. And the fire is pretty interesting. I actually produced my first fires this year. You breed fire to fire, you get an all-white snake with black eyes. It's actually not in the blue-eyed leucistic complex. And if you breed it with a spider, you get, it's kind of, I'd say fire is kind of a lightening and enhancing gene. So you mix it with the spider, and it tends to really lighten and enhance. I know the fire really works well with combos. If you add like a pastel or an orange dream or something like that on top of it, really makes it super bright. It's a really good gene to have. So the Pinstripe, you know, I really love the Pinstripe. It's pretty much an all gold snake with kind of a stripe right down the top of the snake. You mix the Pinstripe with the spider, and this is a really interesting combo. It almost looks like there's more than just Pinstripe and spider in there. I really like how the Pinstripe and the spider works together. It almost looks like a Calico NG Pinstripe is what it looks like. It is a really neat snake. GHI is pretty interesting. There's some things that work really well with GHI. GHI Mojave is probably the best thing you can mix with GHI. GHI is pretty much a dark gene, so it tends to darken and enhance the contrast in a lot of snakes. Mix it with spider and take a look at this snake. This is pretty crazy. The GHI spider, I really like this one. This is a really impressive snake. Albino is kind of interesting. If you mix it with spider, you get some interesting patterns. Especially, essentially, is what the albino is. It almost keeps the pattern of a normal on the albino. It just changes everything to kind of the yellow and white. It's really more of a color enhancer. And all the albinos always have red eyes. It's kind of interesting. And then if you mix it with spider, this is pretty interesting. It almost kind of reverses the colors on this, where it's mostly yellow with kind of the almost like a pinstriping of the white coming through. And the interesting thing about this is I was looking through some of these pictures, and it seems like it depends on the line of the albino as far as how much contrast you're going to get in the albino. And some albino strains are really high contrast, and some are really kind of washed out. And I think it really depends on the strain of albino as far as your final result. So the Pied has been around for a long time, and I'd say this is probably one of the big morphs that kind of really started the whole ball python craze. People just couldn't believe that a ball python could look like this. And you mix spider with Pied. This is really interesting. Essentially, with a Pied, you get these splotches of white all through the snake. Sometimes you can have a low white Pied with just a little bit of white, and sometimes you can get a high white that's almost all white. But the funny thing is, when you mix the spider, what it actually does is it pushes all the pattern of the Pied just to the head, which is really interesting. They just have a little color on the head. And also, you also can get a completely white snake, which is a spider pied. And they have a nickname for the white snake. That's called the White Wedding. And I actually have a female White Wedding in my collection. That's 3 years old and still not up to breeding size. That thing has been so picky when it comes to feeding. I just can't get her up to size. So the banana is really interesting. Usually the banana is really dominant. And this is probably one of my favorite combos, mixing the banana with the spider. And take a look at this. This is a crazy looking snake. I would say hands down, this is probably one of the best combos, mixing banana with spider. I could definitely see myself making some banana spiders in the future. I actually have both genes in my collection. Axanthic works really crazy with the spider. I'd say the Axanthic spiders are probably one of the best combos, hand down. If you actually see one in person, it almost doesn't even look real. Some of them are so silvery and metallic. And here is what it looks like. This is really crazy, the Axanthic spider. And if you kind of look through the different photos here, you can see some are a little bit more variable and some are a lot more brighter. And actually with the Axanthic spider, if you actually want to clean it up and make the white even brighter with more contrast, you can actually add like pastel or fire. So if you have a pastel fire Axanthic spider, I've seen some of those, and they don't even look real. They're just stark white and black with high definition. It kind of takes all the black like pixelation out of the sides. It is really impressive. So Orange Dream, I'd say Orange Dream works really well with spider. Orange Dream, there's several lines of Orange Dream. They have a high intensity line of Orange Dream that a lot of people brag about and they actually get more money for. And if I got into Orange Dream, it would definitely be the high intensity line of Orange Dream. And here, when you mix it with spider, it is a crazy combo. Essentially what it does is it really makes a really bright orange spider, takes all the silver out of it and turns it to orange, which is really cool. So I wanted to jump over here real quick to Morph Market, and actually what I did is I came over here and I sorted by spider and all the snakes that have been sold and for sale, and there's actually been 11,334 spiders over here on Morph Market. It's pretty incredible. And what I want to do from here is I just want to go through real quick and I want to show you the potential of the spider with some of these crazy combos. And some of these you are not going to believe. You probably have never seen any ball pythons that even come close to this. There's nothing that really rivals spider when it comes to combos. So take a look at this one. This is the Banana Buzz, which is really, really a cool snake. This is actually a Bumblebee puzzle, which is a banana, a spider, pastel, and then it has the puzzle gene, which is actually a recessive pattern mutation. Kind of changes the size of the snakes and breaks up the pattern, but that is a really crazy snake. Take a look at this. I was thinking about what would happen if I actually bred Bobby to a spider, and what would I get? As a matter of fact, I was looking at this. This is the bamboo spider Yellow-Bellied, and it looks almost exactly like a bamboo to me. So I'd say if you're breeding a spider, I would probably not choose bamboo, because pretty much what you're going to get is a bamboo with a possible head wobble. I would probably avoid that combo. That's just one of the ones I just kind of noticed that and I'd throw that out there. This is really crazy. Take a look at this. This is the Calico Spider Yellow-Bellied. So actually the Calico kind of has this white on the sides, and then you add it to the spider, which already looks like it has calico in it, and then you get the super reduction of almost like a pixelation of white all through the snake. This is one of the most craziest snakes that I've ever seen. It is pretty amazing. So this is what I was talking about when you mix the fire. This is the Firebee SK Axanthic. So this actually has fire on top of the pastel and the spider and the Axanthic. So it's a pretty interesting mix. So spider, pastel, fire, Axanthic. It's probably one of the most impressive. This is actually sold for $2,500. This is actually from JD Constriction, and they pretty much only specialize in the Axanthic stuff. It's kind of an interesting specialty. Take a look at this one. This is crazy. This is actually a blade lesser spider clown. This is crazy. And essentially when someone says bee, anything that has bee in it, that is the same thing as spider. So if they say like the lesser bee, it's the same thing as the lesser spider, or they say the fire bee or something like that, or the dream bee is the orange dream bee. It's kind of interesting how they change it to the orange dream spider kind of converts to the dream bee. It's interesting. But this is an impressive snake. It's probably one of the most impressive with just this line right down the back. It's really cool. This one is really crazy too, the banana spider freeway. So this is a freeway with the banana on top. The banana is really dominant with the spider. You can definitely see the impact of the spider. It really brings out the pattern so it doesn't really get too washed out with multiple genes. Here's another one that's really intense, the Enchy Spider, Yellow-Bellied, Orange Dream, and those are really all the really brightening genes. The Enchy reduces the pattern, and the Yellow-Bellied, Orange Dream really kind of brings out the intensity of the yellow. So it's Yellow-Bellied, I'd say, an Orange Dream is pretty much working the same as Pastel and Fire in the whole kind of the brightening, lightening, enhancing complex. And then you have the spider for the pattern, and then the Enchy to reduce the pattern. It's interesting how that all works together. This one is really crazy too. These are some amazing combos. This is the Calico Spider Asphalt. So the Asphalt, if we look over here at the individual genes, this is part of, actually if you breed Asphalt to Yellow-Bellied, you get the freeways. You breed the gravel to Yellow-Bellied, you get the highways. And I think I said that right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so this is actually part of the freeway complex with the Asphalt. It's interesting how the Asphalt actually works in here with the Calico and the spider. So I thought I'd throw this one in right at the end. This is a really interesting one. This is a spider pied. And remember with the spider pied, it pushes all the pattern just to the head. And then you add banana on top of that, which turns all the pattern yellow. And you get kind of this yellow-headed white snake, which I thought was probably one of the most interesting ball pythons that I have ever seen. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And Carl LaBianco asks, can anyone get a spot at a reptile show and sell their baby reptiles? And as a matter of fact, you can. As a matter of fact, you can just contact the reptile show, pay in advance, reserve a table. You can reserve pretty much as many tables as you want. I know some shows have a limit on how many tables you can actually reserve. Some of them you can get really huge spots, and some of them you can only register just a few tables at a time. And the other thing is if you're getting too close to the show date, a lot of times they'll be totally booked, or they can't squeeze you in and actually reserve it at the last minute. So you probably want to reserve a table at least a month before the show and pay for it to make sure you actually get a spot. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.